Welcome to the Daily Edge. Marc Nudelberg, and today we have Heather Geronemus with us today. She has spent decades creating social impact through individuals and through organizational efforts. She is a self-starter. She is somebody who has climbed the corporate ladder in ways that most people do not. And I will tell you, she rivals my energy and anybody's energy that I've ever met. So we're going to dive into how she finds her edge.
Let's find our edge.
Let's find our edge. That starts with our affirmation. I don't just chase results. I create opportunity. Purpose, equity, and action are how I win at work and in the world. Heather, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I love that.
Do you? I figured that might resonate with you a little bit.
Absolutely.
So originally from New York, like by birth, but grew up down here in South Florida. Mm-hmm. And for those of you that are like Broward kids, she went to American Heritage in Plantation, Pinecrest graduate, NYU grad, and have spent the last 15 years with what started as Ultimate Software and now UKG.
Yep.
What's it been like creating that journey for yourself?
So completely unexpected, by the way.
Okay.
When I came back to South Florida, I came back for a number of family reasons. I think most people know this about me, but my father was killed by a drunk driver in 2009. So I came back not expecting to stay, not really sure what I was going to do. But I was also at an inflection point in my career where I needed to kind of pick what I was going to do when I grew up. Still working on that. But when I had the great fortune to meet the CEO of Ultimate Software, the founder of Ultimate, Scott Shear, and he offered me a job at the company. And it was, an entry-level marketing role, so it's kind of hitting the reset button on a career that had already been exceptional, but just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
And I did what I kind of consider to be my own marketing development program throughout the company, but pretty much at the beginning, I zeroed in on what I wanted to do. This company was extremely philanthropic, and I wanted to run that. But there was already somebody doing that.
Sure.
It was the chief people officer and the CEO that were doing it, and they didn't have a person that needed to do it. So, but over time, I just kept volunteering for the job that I wanted. I put it in my basket and, really created the role that I have today. But I did that and I also told everybody I knew that that's the job that I wanted. Not just them, but everybody in my circles.
There's a couple of things that I want to dive into here that are like such good points. Number one, you talked about like it being an inflection point, right? And I did my TEDx talk about failure, and like, that wasn't your failure, but you had a massive moment in time that creates sorrow, that creates anguish, that creates doubt, that creates all of these things in your world. How did you manage that emotion and that experience of losing your dad with all of a sudden this professional career change and change in direction?
So what's really interesting about the job offer at the time was that Scott believed in me when I don't think I believed in myself. I was really directionless. And I was building my career, though, when I was also building the 5K that I chaired for Walk Like MADD, or for MADD, Walk Like MADD and MADD - Fort Lauderdale.
Give people a little bit of context around that, because like this is an amazing part of your story. You lost your dad to a drunk driver, and now you've created MADD. Give people some context around that.
So back in 2009, when my dad was killed, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, a nonprofit that's now 45 years old, reached out to me and provided support that literally nobody else could. I mean, the people that have gone through it, people that serve victims all year round, 365, completely free of charge. And it was remarkable. And I didn't know I needed it when I needed it, but then when I exercised that option, it meant more to me than you could imagine. And then I just really wanted to do something about it. And growing up down here, there was a really strong presence of MADD. I remember the high school presentation. I remember when I got my license that drinking and driving was not acceptable here. But it wasn't the same when my dad was killed. So I thought, I got to do something about this. I have to give back to this organization, and I need to prevent tragedies before they occur, because you don't want to meet the Mothers Against Drunk Driving people at your doorstep. You want to meet them, at a school or at a 5K. So, I started the event. The first Walk Like MADD and MADD - Fort Lauderdale was also, I think it was in 2011. So I started that event when I was starting my career at Ultimate. So I was building both at the same time. And so, I was just juggling a lot. But it was a complete self-rediscovery at the time.
So, and you talked about, so that makes sense to me. Number one, you found a passion in nonprofit because a nonprofit made a massive difference in your life in that moment. So then you get into Ultimate at that time, and you set your bullseye as, I want to be a part of creating this community impact. I want to work with nonprofits. I want to run that kind of program. And most people, when they look at a role that they want and somebody's already sitting in it, they go, I'll never be able to get that. Or I don't have the patience to wait for it to open. How did you manage that for so many years before you actually got to have that position you wanted?
Sure. Well, great question. I need to take one more step back.
Yeah.
So I've been volunteering since I could walk and talk.
Okay.
So I think when my eyes opened to the fact that you could do this in a corporation,
okay,
that you could not only, so like at Pinecrest, I was bringing together my friends to volunteer, but even before that, I was following my mom around supporting the nonprofits that she supported. So once I realized I could do something like this professionally, it wasn't even waiting, it was learning, so I figured out how do you do that professionally? Because there's only a handful of us in town still that do what I do.
Right.
So what does it mean to do this for a corporation? How do you engage employees? How do you build programs? How do you navigate and ask for budget? And so I had to learn. I had a lot to learn.
Answer that question for me. So how do you, because you are vice president of belonging and impact at UKG, how do you get an organization to be philanthropic?
So that's a great question. So I think, it starts with the founding principles of the organization, right?
Sure.
So when I walked into Ultimate and a lot of other really great businesses here in South Florida, the founder believed in what I believed. So that was really easy. As an organization grows, there's certainly there's a responsibility, whether you call it ESG or you call it corporate social responsibility, there's an expectation from investors, from customers that companies are investing. But you can do like bottom line investing. You can do what like you put on the website.
You can put your logo with American Cancer, and you can, have a team walk it, the corporate run, and like whatever. Like you could do the minimum. So what does it mean? Because we're always talking about doing things at the highest level. What does it mean to do it at the highest level in terms of a giving organization?
Sure. So what it means is that everyone's bought in. Everyone's talking about it. So I talked to my CEO about the importance of giving. I talked to the head of HR, who I report into, and then we talked to all the business units. So a key driver of employee engagement is actually getting out in the community and volunteering. We know that employees that volunteer through corporate programs are more engaged at work.
Wow.
So really being able to demonstrate the business case for it is what helps people like me, get more budget, get more time off for volunteering. My company went through a big change where we went from being Ultimate Software to UKG 5 years ago, and we did have to reset on some of the things that were important. So how are we going to establish the budget? Do we give volunteer days? So at the time we were all locked down in the pandemic, so we didn't have paid days off to volunteer. So I had to go back and reset that program 3 years ago to make sure that we were offering it. So just advocating, talking about the why and all of that. So it really is, you have to demonstrate the purpose to the business.
I want to hit on something that you just talked about because I think that's really important, and I want you to kind of help me understand the difference. You started with Ultimate Software, which was an entrepreneurial company. Yep. It was an entrepreneurial startup. It was started as a small business and grew into a big business, and anybody who knows about that understands everybody in the organization wears a lot of hats.
Yep.
And there's a lot that you get exposure to as the business grows, and then you guys got bought.
Yep.
And you got bought into a very corporate structure. So what was that transition like for you going from an entrepreneurial, maybe you had a little bit more leeway, maybe there was a little bit less, red tape and a little bit less like bureaucracy to, now this is very different. What was that like?
So that's a great question. Challenging, but in the best way. So there were moments that I would not have said challenging in the best way. But 15 years ago when I started at the company, I was like right around employee number 1,000. We are around 16,000 employees now. So inherently, as the company got bigger, even before we sold to private equity, we were becoming more and more corporate. But I had been there for a long time, so I knew all the levers to pull. And some might say that I wouldn't be able to have taken the journey that I did if I didn't enter the company at the time. But I still think that everybody should set their sights on what they want to do and figure out a way to make it happen. But certainly as we went private, we merged. We had a merger with a same size company. At that time, I was leading communications and philanthropy for Ultimate. So I had peers that did some of what I did. So really navigating that merger during the pandemic was, it was like going to business school.
You said something. I knew the levers to pull, right?
Yep.
Young people, and we live in such an interesting time now, right? Because everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Everybody wants to run their own business. And you really have the capabilities to because of the internet and everything. Yep. But for young people who are graduating, that are going in to a corporate structure for their first job, that may feel like they don't matter or feel like it's impossible to become the CEO of this organization, you know that that's not the case. You know that it is possible. What kind of education would you give them, or how do you help them understand how to figure out what levers to pull? How do you learn? How do you get that education?
It's a great question. And I think it's stepping away from the work and making, forming relationships. Like we were just talking about, I met your dad 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But really finding people in your business that can help you and people outside of your business that can help you. And here in South Florida, we've got a great resource in Emerge Broward, which is a great place for young professionals to go figure things out. Somebody on my team is actually involved in Emerge Broward, and she's planning events for community people. And she's also is tasked with planning events at UKG. So she's learning some of the things that she will learn on the job. She's applying them externally and vice versa. Because sometimes you do need to go outside of your day job to get all the information that you need to do your day job.
I would say you absolutely do, right? Like I remember as a young football coach, I was learning so much from everybody that was on staff with me, but then I was fortunate to also have this thing called the internet that like was new, and YouTube was new, and like all of these coaching videos were out there, and I was like, well, I could learn from these too. And then like, for the coaching profession, they had a thing called the AFCA Coaches Convention, where like every football coach in America goes to this 4-day convention. And I was like, I always just wanted to meet as many people as I could, not to get a job from them, but to be able to like sit at the table while they told stories.
Sure.
Because if I could sit at the table while they told stories, I would learn from that. And I had the opportunity to cultivate a relationship with them. There's no like professional convention, right? Like when you live in South Florida, how did you figure out who to network with, who to build relationships with? How did you figure out how to do that?
So one of the great things is that I was building Walk Like MADD and MADD Fort Lauderdale. So I was trying to raise money too. So I had to figure out who all those people were that gave it away. So,
you had to figure out who your clientele was.
I got out the South Florida Business Journal book of lists, and that was like my target list, right? And at the time, Gail Butler, who's still here in town, was the head of philanthropic giving at AutoNation. And not only was I kind of stalking her to support Walk Like MADD, because it was my conviction that the automotive dealer in town should be on our team, I also realized that she had the job that I wanted. Wow. So first she called me. I literally was stalking the woman. I mean, she called me at the point at which she called me. I thought someone was pranking me. And she said something like, it wasn't in our budget. We can only give you $5,000 for this sponsorship. And it was a first year event. So like she didn't know that was the second biggest sponsorship that I had.
Yes,
it was huge.
Way more than I was going to ask for, right?
And so that was a huge win for us. It was a huge endorsement because somebody in that role was helping get this event off the ground. And then it wasn't that long after that I said, you have the job that I want. I would like to learn from you. And I did, and she took me along. She taught me things by doing. Sure. She taught me things by actually, I would, ask her about things. But one of the things you said, what advice would you give to a young professional is don't just ask for a mentor. Think about a thing you want somebody to help you with and then ask them to do that. Because at a certain point in our careers, yes, I want to mentor everybody that asks me, but I can't invest the time to do like every month or every other week, but I can probably help you solve a problem. Yeah. I can give you how I did this thing. So I really think sometimes a structured mentoring kind of opportunity might be what people are looking for. And I don't know that people usually ask for that. Just said like, hey, can you be my mentor?
I can tell you, most people don't even know what to ask for.
Yeah.
Most people like they do the work to figure out what you want to ask for and then go ask it. I love that. That's wonderful advice for people. And you hit on something. I don't have the time to mentor everybody. I don't know how you manage your time because you travel more than anybody I know, are at more events than anybody I know, are more outward facing than anybody I know. I mean, you do an unbelievable job of being involved.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You manage a company that has 16,000 employees, creating impact for all of them. How do you manage your time?
It's a great question. So one thing is focus, right? So I still have a notebook. I don't. It's not digital. At the beginning of the year, at the beginning of the month, I write personal and professional priorities. And then even this morning, I sat down and what are my top 3 priorities for the day? There's a to-do list under that, but what are my priorities? And that's in a different color.
Yeah.
And then the to-dos that meet the priorities. And then if I'm working on something that is not on that priority list, then I am not being responsible to myself. So it's really being disciplined about where your focus goes. And my job has recently expanded, so that's actually something that I'm working on again because I kind of had it all figured out.
You had your system in place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now my team has doubled in size. I have another area of focus and more folks that I talk to throughout the business and a different leadership level. So I actually am looking forward to some time off during the holidays to blow up my calendar and start over. But the calendar is the important thing, right?
Okay, so this is a great opportunity then, because I think, what are you going to do, right? I think people would die to hear this, right? Okay, your team just expanded. There's a leader listening right now that oh man, my team just grew.
Yep.
I just got put in a new role. I would love to blow up my calendar.
Yeah.
What does that exercise look like for you to rebuild it?
So obviously you got to keep the meetings that somebody else put on your calendar,
right?
But so the leadership from above me meetings stay. So I know what my leadership expectations are.
Yep.
But then I'm going to take everything off. But as I'm doing it, okay, I have one-on-one with this person. It's weekly. I have one-on-one with this person. It's every other week. Evaluate the necessity for those meetings. We have so many meetings on our calendars. The bigger the company gets, the more meetings we have.
Yep.
And so what I really am looking forward to doing is thinking about how often do we need to meet. But not just how often do we need to meet, what's the structure of that meeting? Is there an agenda that we can put together? So we're not just checking boxes. We're actually solving problems.
Yeah.
Because I can check boxes or review stuff in an email,
right.
But I can have a rich conversation with you like we're having today and really move a project forward.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel like I'm just checking boxes. So
right.
I'm looking forward to taking everything off the calendar and then really evaluating what the meeting cadence should look like.
Yep.
And what we're trying to accomplish with the meetings.
That's amazing. And so that's for everybody else on your calendar. Do you have time for yourself on your calendar? How do you figure out what goes on your calendar for yourself?
So this is a big thing for me. And the first thing we talked about was focus. The other is really just having the courage to actually do the thing you need to do, right? So I read a book called Secrets of the World Class, which is like a collection of quotes. And one of the quotes said, nothing adds more power to your life than focusing on a limited set of targets. And I read that 15 years ago.
Figuring out how to apply that.
I started implementing it maybe 5 years ago because you have to also give yourself the permission to take the time for yourself. So my time for myself is I work out every morning. And even if it's not a really hard workout, then it's stretching, but I have an hour every morning that's for me. And that was really hard to give myself that permission over time. Because I would, when I was building my career, I would say, I stayed up late or I got to go to this event or I got to go to a breakfast. I don't really do breakfast anymore because 5:45 to 6:45, I'm at Lift Lab Reward Station.
Yeah,
so,
right.
And then when I come home, I have another hour that's like my time.
Yeah.
So if I need to focus on a project, that's really good thinking time.
Yeah.
I do, I like to read during that time. But, this morning I had stuff to review and I'm going on vacation soon. So that's my high level time where I can spend for myself. And, I'm a big reader and none of these books are like the be all end all. But there's a little bit of Atomic Habits in my strategy and a little bit of the 5 a.m. Club in my strategy, which is like structuring that time and habit stacking.
Robin Sharma is one of my favorites.
Really?
So if you've never read The Saint, the Surfer, the CEO.
I haven't read that one.
Oh, which comes from him.
Okay.
My dad gave me that book when I was 22.
Oh, no way.
And I was entering into my professional career and I was kind of drinking through a fire hose and was like making every leader in the organization my God, you know what I mean? Like, I got to be just like them.
Yeah.
And he gave me that book and it gave me unbelievable perspective to be able to separate how to take qualities from people and not go wholesale into one person, which obviously you've done a very good job of because you're very well-rounded and you continue to learn and grow.
But I got to read that one.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that one. Okay, so we've hit on some unbelievably good topics here. I have one question that I ask everybody, which I'm interested to see whether or not you can clearly or simply answer it, which is, how do you find your edge every day?
So I think we talked about a lot of it. So
Right.
you're going to say it's not
Right.
simple. But we talked about the focus. We talked about permission. One thing that I think is really interesting, and I get the benefit of doing this all the time, but it's accessible to anybody, is go out in the community to find perspective. Because no matter what you think is happening in your life that's hard, there's somebody that's homeless that doesn't know where the next meal is coming from. So, I think that really that gives me my edge, is the understanding that we can help each other person to person, or we can help each other one to many. I have the benefit of one to many, 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 and empowering people to do that over and over again, which is what wakes me up every morning. But sometimes I have to go see it too. So I think that really getting out there and getting that perspective is important.
That was a mic drop. That was we asked that question to everybody. That's one of the best answers I've heard. Well done.
I'm very competitive.
Well done. If people want to get involved with either your MADD Walk or any of the multiple events and nonprofits that you're a part of, how do they get in touch with you?
So everyone can find me at H Geronemus everywhere. If people still use X, definitely on Instagram, on Facebook. Find me on LinkedIn. Definitely on LinkedIn. I'm not as prolific as you are, but I'm trying.
Get you there.
And certainly at MADD-5K on Instagram is where you'll find all the content about the upcoming Mad Dash, which is happening on April 26th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining the show. Thank you for letting everybody know how you find our edge. Let us know in the comments how you find your edge, what purpose you find, how you find perspective, and what you're doing to give back to your community. Now, to take us out, look directly into that camera and say, let's find our edge.
Let's find our edge.
Let's go.